Hello everyone, here is the most overpowered Amon build to take on Subjugator and Thol the Invincible in Borderlands 4 in Ultimate Vault Hunter 7 to get that platinum time. Now this is a pretty fun setup because we have a few different things going on. We can stack up There Is Only Red relatively easy using the Mantra shotgun, which you can get from Bloom Reaper, so it's a nice sequel to this fight here. But for the first phase here, what we're looking to do is take care of those annoying eyeballs here. The Heimdahl weapon here is going to be somewhat necessary because of the insane damage that it does and the ability to give you back your heavy ordnance charges. So what I'm doing here is I'm always firing it off. There's a lot of ads in this arena to help you regain your ordnance ability here, and you can see it just shreds through Thol, Subjugator, and I honestly think that Amon has like the third easiest time clearing this boss in Ultimate Vault Hunter 7 Platinum, with obviously Cash and Harlowe being extremely powerful. But as you can see here, Amon is unstoppable, and this build actually works great for mobbing, and against a Bloom Reaper there are some other weapon options we can choose as well. Now we also are taking advantage of Groundbreaker here, so you can use spread launchers. There's even other ways to deal with this, and after we activate our Forge skill there, we're actually able to use the mantra, as you see there, to get our max stacks of There Is Only Red, so we're getting a nice boost to the cryo damage overall, and this will add up stacking a crazy amount of damage to our build here. So you can see we can go through this phase. I would highly recommend just jumping up into Subjugator like you saw there, so we just had to fight Thol because he is much easier. You can also swap out and use a fire weapon, but I just stuck with a good old-fashioned Heimdahl here because this thing is absolutely insane. At this point for Amon, I did try the new flak cannon out, and it's fun, but the damage that you get from it isn't as high as the damage you get from this. And honestly, Cash really uses that weapon a lot better than Amon does, but it's still a very powerful weapon if you want to farm it from this boss, and it's a really fun one to use. But you can see here, the overall strategy is jump, shoot, jump, shoot. We got so much sustain with ordnance damage being able to give us overshield, so we basically are unstoppable. Amon is incredibly tanky and honestly pretty fun to play. I like some of the buffs that he's gotten recently, and the Heimdahl is probably the biggest buff of all. I'll be bringing out the entire skill tree here to help you get that platinum time. And one thing that's actually really great is his new Artificer class mod is really fun. This is great for mobbing, I find. Against Subjugator and Thol, you can use it on lower Ultimate Vault Hunter levels, but the beautiful thing about it is that it gives us My Touch is Death. So we don't have to go all the way down. We can just grab There Is Only Red, which is going to give us that bonus damage on top of our Berserk damage whenever we activate our Forge skill here, which I'm using the Horcleave. Now I tried many different versions of this build because Amon is honestly quite fun to play, but Blackout here gives us shock damage. Now I try to just stick with the left skill tree as I usually do, but we do want to grab Electrical Fire here. It's just because we have a lot of red health bars. Against other raid bosses in the future, this probably won't be necessary, but we need to apply those burns because we got a lot of ways to apply shock. And Catastrophe just scales up our critical hit damage and chance, which is amazing, so you're going to be hitting a ton of crits. And while it's not fully necessary on this build, we can do big bursts of damage as Amon, and then trigger Groundbreaker, and our action skill, the red one, allows us to get in and melee to deal that. And if you really want to, you can actually use the blue skill tree's action skill here, but obviously being able to do melee damage and jump around with Onslaughter is really nice. Now to start off from level 1 here, I grabbed the heavy plate here, but as you saw, we have pretty much infinite ordnance sustain if you're able to get a class mod like Ballistic Bulwark, which gives us overshield when he deals ordnance damage, and due to the high damage that Heimdahl does, only 1 or 2 points is needed to basically keep you alive infinitely in this fight, so you don't really need this, but this will make you like super powerful, especially early game. What burns within is also another choice, which is going to give you increased incendiary damage, which is great because we're going to be dealing it with our shock damage, so that can be helpful as well. But I just like heavy plate because it just gives you so much sustainability. Now, gut punch is always going to be something you take for that extra damage the enemies end up taking when they get dealt ordnance damage or melee damage. And then Tritanium Knuckles. Now, this is going to give us skill damage and melee damage, but you don't need to take this. You could alternatively take Wield the Storm, which will give you further stats effect damage and duration. But as we move on down, Bulletstorm is essential because any gun damage increases that we get are actually going to be times by 1.5 onto our heavy ordnance because it's both a gun, and with one of our specializations it'll take half of those amounts. So this is a huge boost to our DPS. And I actually love the Amon buffs that they gave him on the last patch. They're really fun to play around with. So shout out to Gearbox for making some nice Amon buffs. I'd like to see more in the green skill tree, but that's beside the point. After this, I'm a big fan of taking Berserk and There Is Only Red, but we do want to grab Electrical Fire as soon as possible. Catastrophe will give us critical hit chance, and it'll also give us the critical hit damage that we're looking for. We want to try and get as many crits as possible on our heavy ordnance, and the Heimdahl actually is pretty solid for that with the amount of firing it does. And since we're going to have a ton of uptime on our shield, grabbing crackling ages here is going to give us additional status effect damage and ordnance damage. Obviously, that's very nice. Now, when you get to electrical fire, Fists of Stone is actually interesting if you have the Mantra Shotgun, because whenever we deal melee damage, we restore our forward skill cooldown, which is Firewall. If you're not taking a capstone here, Firewall is actually really good because this will actually give us increased projectile speed and damage. However, it doesn't really work well with the Heimdahl, so it's better if you're using something like the Roly Poly, Rocket Socket, Honey Bunches, those heavy ordinances against like Bloom Reaper, because Heimdahl just sucks against Bloom Reaper because of the Vile Crystals, and its tracking isn't super great. So you can take this. You can also take the Dragon's Breath, which will give you convert the damage into incendiary damage, staggering enemies, but that cannot be done to obviously these bosses. So if you're using the mantra, take Fists of Stone. Otherwise, Dragon's Breath is going to be good. Incendiary damage is actually good in this fight because of the large red health bar that Thol has, and yeah, it's worth grabbing this. Now, we're coming here for electrical fire so that when we burn an enemy, we also shock them. I also at this point like to take Berserk, so when we activate our forward skill, you don't even have to take the capstone. It's something I don't typically do on Amon builds, but in this situation we're going to want to use it just due to the Heimdahl not really benefiting from it much. Berserk, whenever we activate our forward skill, will give us the slow immunity, bonus cryo damage with gun, and melee damage. Furthermore, to that point, we can then take There Is Only Red. So this is a kill skill whenever Berserk is active. We can then swap out the mantra as we're then going to grab My Touch is Death, which when we deal melee damage, it'll activate this. So we don't actually have to get kills because the mobs in this arena have like 6 million health. They're not worth dealing with. Now we can grab a single point of Bloodlust. Our shield is often never going to break, but having some life steal is nice too, especially when the Heimdall's bouncing around. And Rhyme Break can help restore your shield there if your shield does end up breaking. So these are just like a safety net. It's more so just so we can grab My Touch is Death and throw on Horror Cleave. So for our augments here, there's a couple choices. Force of Nature is crazy because you can detonate this, and this is going to, whenever gun damage is dealt to an enemy, they get primed, and then we can blast away with that, which is obviously nice for extra damage. There's also Fulminating Fist here, which gives us increased status effect chance, which is good once we get into the blue skill tree. And the more statuses, the better. So you could go with that, but I do think Force of Nature ends up being better because we want to try and detonate them. And for our capstone, Horror Cleave, I just really like. This has a shorter cooldown of 55 seconds, which is great for allowing us to grab our Berserk into that. So this is pretty useful. This will also freeze enemies, so that's pretty solid. You could go with Stormcutter if you prefer. This one will set up detonations. This one will actually give you your action skill restoration whenever you use this. So honestly, both of them are solid. Just depends what you like to use more, but honestly, both can work well. After this, we got 20 points left to spend in our blue skill tree. Now, you can take these points out of this. This is not super necessary to the build. So if you don't have a class mod that's going to give you the Primal Surge, you're going to take those points out, put it here. And alternatively, you can get the new class mod to give you those points. So it just depends on what you got available. Now for our first skill, obviously we're taking Scorch Kairos for an additional ordnance and magazine size. Afterwards, Tail of the Comet is just so insane. So when we deal ordnance damage, there's a chance to apply a cryo status effect that deals cryo damage over time. So we got a cryo, fire, shock going all at once with a Watts for dinner. So amazing. After that, we're then going to take Battleborn. We're going to be at maximum health pretty much at all times. So that's 20% extra damage. So 30 on our heavy ordnance, pretty solid. Afterwards, we got 5 more points here. We're gonna throw those all into Blackout. So our ordnance gets an increased critical hit chance, and this will also apply a shock on the enemy. So we have shock, now it's also fire, and it's cryo. And if you got the Watts for dinner, that just adds even further amounts. And yeah, when the level cap increases later in the fall, this build is going to go insane because that just lets us take even further skills. So yeah, I do see Amon being honestly probably the 3rd strongest now, which is crazy. Vex is great, but Amon just clears a lot more reliably. And again, if you don't have a class mod that's giving you points into the blue skill tree here, because we do need Primal Surge, so this will stay infinitely. And also the Ballistic Bulwark is nice, so we have that overshield so we don't go down. Those two would be like the most ideal rolls. You can get you can get more rolls into it, but I just had a 2 and a 4 there. And I have a single point here into Endless Bombardment, which heavy ordinances have a chance to refund 1 ammo on damaging enemies. The Heimdahl just damages enemies a lot, so this is actually really good too. The Cyborg class mod, even with his new class mod, this still ends up being one of the best in slot. You can go with an Artificer though, because this will give you, I don't love the rolls on it outside of the My Touch is Death, because that can apply your kill skills. But what's good about this is it's a beast for when you're mobbing, because your melee attacks and ordnance damage will trigger bullet hail, and critical hits will double this damage chance, and this will also match whatever elemental damage type that you're using. Bullet Hail being the passive skill here, which gunshots have a chance to ricochet as elemental shards, dealing crowd damage. But again, with this new class mod, they match whatever elemental damage you're using. So that can actually be pretty crazy for mobbing purposes. But in terms of our overall bossing, it's probably best to go with like a cyborg or grenadier here. Those are probably the best choices. I've been experimenting with some of the other class mods here. I had a really fun build where I was using the blacksmith to get all those forge drones because they do melee damage, which can trigger my touch's death, but that just ends up spreading yourself too thin, unfortunately, for this boss. And with this new boss, you really got to have everything as focused as possible. Now, the best possible role is a watch for dinner. This is an annoyance to farm, but you don't need the 150 charge on it. I actually took this from one of my other Vault Hunters. Yeah, it's going to be obviously the best in slot unless they add another damage shield to the game. You can get by with like a super soldier if you wanted to. And I have a Cinder Shelly on Rafa right now that has the amp on it, so that is another choice. This makes you ungodly unkillable. Like, you got so much tankiness with that setup, but we generate overshield when we sneeze. We don't really need to have shields, so having this is crazy just due to the amount it takes our damage gets increased, we get more overshield. It's absurd how powerful this ends up being. Now, for our enhancement, now this is not super optimal, but I got gun damage. It's really something you want to look for. Critical hit damage would be great because we're trying to get as many crits as possible. We're going crit fishing today. Gun splash damage is kind of nice though, and this opens things up because, yeah, we're doing splash damage. Furthermore to that, you can also get a splash damage in your Repkit, so this doubles up even further. I'm also a fan of the Torque stud finder here. I really like this because you can then pull out Shalashaska and it actually works decently well on Amon, but that's up to you, your choice. We're just looking for gun damage, and any type of critical hit chance or damage is good too. And I guess magazine size could help out too if you don't have a perfect roll for your class mod. But for our Ordnance, obviously it's Heimdahl. This is the highest damage roll. You can also use the new flak cannon. If you can find a flak cannon with the explosive rounds, it's going to have even higher damage. But for my testing, it's not enough against the new bosses. But I mean, Heimdahl is just so crazy powerful. Why would you want to use something else? But for those that don't have the DLC, I should mention that as well. Like a rocket socket, a roly pole. Rocket socket is probably the preferred one. I also like the tongue wag too. If you can get an elemental version of this, that's a pretty solid option. And if you're going against any vile crystals, these are just so much better to explode with. Atling gun doesn't really do anything in this fight, unfortunately. I tried. It works great with cash though, but yeah, you can roll with one of these as well, or if you're fighting against Bloom Reaper. But for the Repkit, I don't mind a triple bypass. This allows us to get our action skill back if you wanted it. I just have the splash damage here, so you constantly want to be pinging this every 10 seconds. The kill spring works as well. I got elemental affinity on here. It's not like super perfect, but it can work. And the war paint's another good choice. Fire rate increases are always good. It just allows us to put out more damage quickly. So between those three, I just like to roll with the triple bypass. Now for our firmware, Deadeye's really good. Every critical hit gives critical hit damage per stack. So yeah, we're doing lots of crits. We're getting extra damage here. This is something you definitely want to grab. I'm usually a high caliber 3 kind of guy, but on this particular build, the Deadeye 3 just ends up trumping. With the high caliber though, this gives us increased gun damage. Again, that's like 15% our heavy ordnance, projectile speed as well, which is nice. But if you got 3 high caliber, because I like using it on most builds, that can work here as well. Now I really went hard on min-maxing here just because Amon, he really benefits from that kind of stuff. I did the same with Rafa, who's just unfortunately the worst for clearing this new boss. But when we look at our weapons, I really like to use the mantra here because this does melee damage. So that means it's going to trigger our my touch's death. It's whenever you deal melee damage. So again, the forge drones can actually activate that as well. It's not melee attacks, but with the ability here, whenever we deal melee damage, you can get your forge skill cooldown back with this. Melee attacks will double that. So that means that you're using onslaughter for those, but I don't have perfect damage. You can get a fire and a shock one. That'd be the best for this particular setup. And with the Ripper parts, it's just insane. You get your max stacks, there's only red real quick. Now, obviously spread launchers are really powerful. They're not even needed. As you saw in the video there, I only used it one time in the fight, but they're just good because it's big burst damage, which lets you then trigger our specialization Groundbreaker. I also enjoy using the Herald. This is really fun against Thol. You can still get the platinum time while using it, but obviously we're an Ordnance focused build. That's kind of what we want to be using, but the Herald is pretty fun. I actually like it with a Ripper part and Incendiary Override, but the damage on this, I don't really have it that high. And Juliet's Sparkle is a really good weapon as well. You get the, if you get a shotgun loader on this, a shotgun loader is crazy because you're putting shock and fire on the enemy all at the same time. And the Constable is another really fun weapon to use here. It's got pretty high damage, but I think it's better out used on other setups. Same thing as a Crazed Earl and the Crow's Source. Those are really fun weapons. These are more so relegated to mobbing, but even then, Ordnance is just the way to go. So these are more so like stat sticks in a sense. Like this here is here to activate our skills, and these are here to activate Groundbreaker. And this is just fully like min-maxing it here. Actually, it could go a little bit further with the min-maxing, but honestly, you don't need all of this gear. You just need a Heimdahl and a good class mod to get you the skills. But again, you can also go without the skills if you don't have them. And for our specializations, Groundbreaker, obviously being able to store this damage, it stores Ordnance damage, and then we go in with a melee attack, and boom, it goes boom. It does a lot of damage. You don't need it though, but this will just allow you to stack up as spread launchers, which I did a lot of farming for poor Rafa. Fragmented Payload will give us increased critical hit chance and damage. Mostly looking for the damage, but that 5% crit chance is amazing. And I even showed you guys this. I completely forgot to take off now with caffeine. Jeez. So that demo at the start, I did not have full spectrum arsenal, which is what you want to have. I went and respec this because people asked me to use lower points. So I did this with under 100 here, but geez, I feel like a doofus here. This is going to scale up the damage even further. And Riddle You This will give us 50% gun damage, which turns to 75 with full spectrum arsenal. And I'm going to try and do this while talking to a camera. So what we want to be doing is dealing with these stupid eyeballs at the start, because they are going to heal Subjugator as soon as his health starts dropping. We're doing insane damage here, but yeah, we got it there. So go around shooting each of those. Now keep an eye on your ammunition. There's a lot of mobs in here. Whenever you get to one bullet, wait until those start shooting. The beautiful thing about Heimdahl is that those extra heads, wow, the damage is a lot higher here. Those extra heads are going to allow us to get that to go a little bit quicker, because they are always shooting at the boss here. So whenever this happens, I like to, you can save your skills for a little bit later on. Basically, we want to try and barrel stuff Subjugator as quickly as possible. I much prefer going against Subjugator. Going against, I prefer to go against Thol. Now he's got this, so Thol is getting absolutely eviscerated here. Going against Subjugator is the not preferred option, and we're going to go against him here. So now, RNG be damned there. You can still do this, no problem, but what we're going to want to do is we got to deal with the, he's going to pull out an elemental swap here, so this makes this a lot more challenging, but we're going to go ahead, activate our kill skill here. Now, if we get cryo on him, that ends up sucking pretty badly and makes this a whole lot harder, but we're still going to do our old tricks here, dealing with these Ordnance damage off to the boss and allow that to critical hit and get some extra damage going. Always be jumping though, because there is a lot of the extra, there's a lot of corrosive waves popping by. He's going to bounce around there. It's the second phase that we've got to deal with. I actually hate going against Subjugator here, and that is the roulette of playing with, well, talking to the camera. I didn't notice, like normally I would stop shooting these off. I have one bullet left here, so I don't want to fire this again. You don't want to also pull away from your Ordnance whenever you only have one shot here, because that, yeah, I'm in a very bad position. That was not great RNG. But basically these heads here are going to be what gives us our Ordnance back, so that is ideal to deal with. And the spread launcher can help out here with trying to get that to go. Oh shit, yeah, there we go, that runs over. Unfortunately, I don't have time to go run that back again right now, but if you end up getting another, like if you see his Elemental Eater is on cryo, for example, you can pull out a different weapon, like your other Heimdalls here. I'd recommend farming a few of them here. Fire would be optimal, I just didn't have it on the setup here, but having a few of these with the lower DPS is fine, just for the Subjugator part of the fight. Thol gets dropped real quick to a Heimdahl. And yeah, that video right here at the start was without me using full spectrum arsenal, so I lost 50% damage there on our Heimdahl, so that would have been a lot quicker if I did that properly, but you can still get the platinum time, so it doesn't really need to be min-maxed that much. From all my testing today, Amon's probably the third easiest Vault Hunter to do this in. It's amazing. I honestly think that he got really good scaling thanks to the Heimdahl here, so let me know your thoughts in the comments, hit the subscribe button below, we'll catch you in the next one.